always comes down to leadership or lack of it. The smartest person in the room is the room. Senior leaders always think other people need to change, and they don't. But I think leaders who are effective, they believe in that concept of servant leadership.
Hello everyone, my name is Aya and I'm here today with my co-host Naila. Welcome to HR and Beyond, the podcast that goes deeper into the trends and challenges in the workplace. Today's theme is something special. It's leading and adapting in the age of accelerated change. Join us today as we unpack this topic and focus on what works, what doesn't work, and what leaders should focus in this age.
Thank you, Aya. And we're beyond excited to have today with us Diana Khaitova, who is heading the APAC Client Development for Center of Creative Leadership. She has lived in Asia for more than 25 years, so definitely understand the richness and complexity of this region. And she's just an inspiration, the person who actually works on building thriving organization and future leaders. Welcome, Diana. We're so excited to have you with us. And I think first question, just tell us about your story and what drew you to the theme of leadership and organizational change.
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. My pleasure to be here. And well, my story is a story of taking risks and being courageous and being curious and learning as we go. So I started my career in HR consulting. And what I very quickly learned as we worked on various organizational design projects or employee engagement projects, succession planning projects, it always comes down to leadership or lack of it. And there were so many great strategies or suggestions that we presented to our clients, and many of them were not successful in implementing them because their leaders would not execute. And that's how I started learning more about what made good leaders and how to help leaders to be more inspirational, more effective, more visionary, and more human-centric, which is very important. And that's how I moved into leadership space. And for the last 6 years, I've been with Center for Creative Leadership, which is the most amazing place to learn everything there is to know about leadership.
Yeah, definitely. You're all known for your staple programs and report quality of it. So you've been in this space already for some time. When you think of leadership evolution, what are the main trends you have noticed within last 5-10 years, given how much change the world went through?
Yes, there's the tsunami of change. And when we speak about leadership, I'd like to identify 3 areas that I think are the most critical. First shift is a shift from learning from the past and present to envisioning the future. Because we're experiencing so much technological change, geopolitical change, demographical change. Many lessons of the past are no longer relevant. And the way leaders tend to learn, or all of us tend to learn, we learn from the past experiences, and then we try to apply them in the present. Probably some experiences are still very, very relevant, but we need to really start thinking more about anticipating the future, imagining multiple futures, multiple scenarios, and preparing ourselves for that. And majority of leaders really struggle with it. They lack imagination, they lack courage, they lack of breadth of understanding of different trends and what's happening across the world and how to project that into the future, the impact that might have on their industry, their organization, and themselves as leaders. So that is one very critical shift. The second shift, in terms of how we lead, is the shift from the heroic individual leader to the power of the collective. So if we think of how work is done these days, most of the work is done within teams, by teams or teams of teams collaborating with each other. So a lot of leaders still have that very traditional leadership style of I'm on the top, I'm supposed to know what to do, I'm supposed to tell everybody what to do, and people just execute. They are missing an opportunity to really leverage the power of collective intelligence. And the world is becoming so complex that no one person, no matter how knowledgeable, talented, educated that person is capable to make sense of that complexity. So leaders that are able to bring people together and really leverage, multiply that collective intelligence, people that are able to build ecosystems, partnership between different teams, those leaders are being successful. And in the future, that's the only way to be successful. The third shift, I think, is really more generational. And, we're all talking about AI every single day. It's not only learning about the AI agents or the tools or how to implement them. It's really re-envisioning how we work, how we collaborate with AI. And the younger generations, just so much easier, so much more natural to them. Whereas I feel like leaders at the top of many organizations just still struggling to get their head around. So rethinking how we engage with our teams, how we learn together, how we empower people who actually know what they're doing more. So I often say the smartest person in the room is the room. And only the leaders who get it and can really bring that alive, those leaders are going to be successful.
I actually saw a report, I don't remember who published it, on LinkedIn recently, and all the skills you now listed, they were there. Yeah, like the ability to work with AI, creativity and imagination, leadership, team leadership. So it's all there. So I wonder, as you work with organizations, people actually know it's gonna be important, but not necessarily evolve towards it. So what are the barriers and why are we failing in many cases to catch up to this and be prepared?
Well, many people know that we need to eat healthy and exercise and get enough sleep.
That's also true,
Everybody knows that, and we still don't do it. So just knowing is not enough. I think there's always a lot of inertia, and there is a lot of, if you put yourself in the shoes of leaders who are already in very senior roles and they went through, several decades of their careers getting to the top, they've learned how to be successful in the past. It's very difficult to change. Changing a human being is one of the most difficult tasks in the world. I think a lot of people know, but maybe do not feel that sense of urgency. Or they just do not know how to change. And that's where I think the HR leaders, HR professionals will have such an important role to play, to educate our leaders, to educate our employees about the importance of constant reinvention and constantly building your awareness of how the world is changing and how we need to adapt to it.
And so a lot of our listeners are actually HR professionals. So I want to ask you, for the organizations that don't have such, leadership platform right now, where would you suggest them to start so that they can, I guess, change the perspective of the leaders?
Start with a conversation. Leadership is not only learned in a classroom when you're going through leadership development program. I think the most powerful conversations the HR leaders can have with their business leaders is asking, how do you envision the future of leadership in our organization? What talent we need? What talent we are lacking at the moment? How are you seeing yourself as a leader in the future? So really engaging the business into those conversations, linking the business objectives and strategies that are all being disrupted right now with very specific mindsets and capabilities. And helping them to see the change starts within first. Senior leaders always think other people need to change and they don't.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't need to spend a lot of money. You just need time and really powerful conversation on the topic of the future of leadership in the organization.
So I think to this, especially if we think of APAC, Asia versus rest of the world, here I still feel in many countries, especially South Korea, Japan, it's quite hierarchical. It's very, very top down. How to manage this? Yeah, like the cultural aspect and the readiness for the future.
It is very hard, but it doesn't mean we don't try and we don't do it. People tend to hide behind culture. It is very convenient to say, well, this is our culture, that's how we do it. But cultures evolved. Cultures are not set in stone. And people, especially people in leadership roles, have a big role in shaping the culture. So I always invite people or my clients or business leaders to think, what are some of the beautiful attributes of your culture, be it your national culture or your organizational culture, that you absolutely must keep? But what are the areas where it's actually holding you back and it needs to evolve? So a conversation like this acknowledges that there are a lot of beautiful things and we want to preserve them. Some traditions should be preserved. I think one wonderful example that in Asia, the benefit of the collective often comes before the benefit to the individual.
Yeah, of individual, that's true.
I think it's a beautiful thing. And we all saw during the pandemic how Asian societies just mobilized themselves to protect the weak. Nobody objected to social distancing and lockdowns, even though we were all inconvenient, but everybody understood we have to do it to protect each other. And we've compared with some other places around the world where that individualistic values kind of came on top. So that's an example of how some attributes of the culture are absolutely wonderful and serve us all, but some are not. An example of that is that hierarchical top-down leadership. I travel a lot around the region and I see a lot of frustration among young people who just cannot, they feel they're not heard, they're not respected, and they actually have a lot of knowledge and they can contribute a lot. So I always encourage to create platforms where senior leaders can interact with the most energetic, the most innovative and creative young people in their organization, and realize that actually they can all learn from each other. So creating those spaces for conversation, engagement, interaction, and it doesn't cost any money. It doesn't cost anything. And then I think one particular aspect that we need to try really hard in Asia is because the way people are educated and the way family values are is that you do not disagree, you do not ask questions, you do not speak up. And when young people or all of us bring that in the workplace, then it's very difficult to build a psychologically safe space, a space where people can openly share their ideas, disagree, challenge status quo. And those behaviors are all needed for innovation and for managing change. So I think that aspect of teaching skills or changing mindsets of anybody who is in a people leadership role, of how to create that safe environment, how to encourage people to disagree and debate and challenge, speak their mind, give feedback to each other. That is skill. And that skill can be taught. But of course, it requires a lot of effort to give that permission, to encourage people to do that. And many of the organizations that we work with, it takes maybe 2-3 years of constant efforts and training and conversation. But then they start seeing the results and how much more innovation and new thinking and energy just flows bottom up. So that is, I think, a very important area to focus on.
And I totally agree. I think over the past few years, I've seen with the new generation coming in, questioning everything. And it kind of also helps you to, I guess, rethink some of the things that you've been doing, right? Philosophies. And it's a good thing, definitely, to have this multi-generational conversation because they bring something fresh as well.
Absolutely. But if as a senior leader, my mindset, I know everything. I'm supposed to know everything. Why are you disagreeing with me? You're closing the door to curiosity and exploration and learning and maybe actually making better decisions or finding some new ways, innovative ways of doing that. So that is a mindset shift that many senior leaders do need to make.
Diana, you mentioned about, I think you referred a couple of times to a strategic leader. I'm curious, how would you define a strategic leader?
I think the definition of what it means to lead strategically has really changed in the last few years. So in the past, being a strategic leader was really more around executing on a strategy.
Yeah.
So very few people on the top were tasked with developing the strategy. Very often consultants were brought in. And let's say if you are regional president, a country head, it's mainly executing the strategy. While those are still important skills and capabilities, just no longer sufficient. So in my opinion, a truly strategic leader can do three things. Can think strategically about the future. So being that futurist, visionary. And God, we are really lacking those visionary leaders, right? If you look at what's happening in so many organizations, constant reorg, constant cost cutting, the root cause of that, there's no vision of how to grow organization, how to create new value in the new world. So all that is left is cutting costs.
Yeah.
So thinking strategically, being more visionary, more future focused, then influencing the organization in this strategic way. Because it's not enough to have a vision. You need to bring a complex organization, a complex system together to get everybody aligned. So strategic stakeholder management or influencing. And then basically creating commitment, creating energy, creating processes that are effective, right? So that's more on the execution side. And I would say that the first two, ability to think strategically about the future and kind of influencing and creating alignment in a strategic way, that is where we see most leaders at very senior levels really struggle right now.
How can I, as a leader, start this journey and cultivate it in myself? First of all, like this thirst for learning and curiosity, and like what you described now, you like being the strategic leader, because in day to day, in practice, you just have a lot of things to execute. So, yeah, maybe some things you can share which you saw worked.
So it depends on your level of seniority and the scope of your role. So some roles are more focused on execution than the others. But it doesn't mean we cannot start developing those strategic leadership skills. So let's focus on thinking strategically first. I would ask myself a few questions. How far ahead do I think about my role or my function or my team? Is it quarter? Is it a year? Is it next 5 years? How far ahead do I try to envision the ideal state of me as a leader or my team or my function? And start challenging yourself to think a little bit further. You don't need to think like 100 years from now, but where should we be in a year or two? So stretching that time horizon. The second question is, how broad do I look at my team as a part of a complex organizational system? So one of the capabilities of a person who can think strategically is ability to think understand systems and deal with systems. So my team is a part of a larger system. Who do I impact? How we interact with each other? What are the needs of other parts of the system, other stakeholders? And again, stretch yourself in terms of thinking, how will those needs evolve? Right? So you start paying attention to what we call early warning signals, early trends. What is happening in the market, in the country, in my organization? Some of it is noise, but some of those are patterns. So start putting those dots together, right? Connecting those dots. So if this is where my organization is going, what will my CEO or my business unit head, whatever, what will that person need in a year? Can I go to them now and say, well, I am anticipating that based on the direction of our organization, that is what we will need in terms of our talent or in terms of our HR policies. let's start thinking about it ahead. So you're already positioning yourself as somebody who understands what's happening and connect different pieces together and anticipates. So proactively bring some new ideas to the organization that will prepare organization for what's coming. So that is a first step. Then, of course, it's not enough just to have understand that and have idea. Then you move into that strategic influencing. Who do I need to influence to get my ideas heard or adopted or valued? Usually we just work with our direct manager or people just in our narrow circle. Is my network within the organization broad enough, strategic enough? Do I have people who can influence other important people?
Mm-hmm.
Do they trust me? What do they think of me? How have I positioned myself? Then we are starting building those blocks to have the right network, access to the right people that can influence the broader system. So just these two. If you can start just challenging ourselves a little bit every day, you will very soon see that people notice that you think very differently, not in a tactical way, not in a short-term way. And of course, you show I care about long-term sustainability and well-being of my organization. How does that sound?
Yes, I think it's a great start because very often I also hear from our leaders that this person could be my successor but doesn't have the strategic capabilities. Yes, and it is difficult in a purely executional role also to necessarily give opportunities to demonstrate it. But I think just the way of thinking.
Don't wait for opportunities.
Start. Yes, exactly.
Do not wait for anybody to give you opportunities. You see what's happening, anticipate, think ahead, look broadly, bring some new thinking and ideas to any conversation you have with senior stakeholders and ask for their input, their thinking.
Yes, that's a great way to build your reputation also. And I think in connection with this, probably for different type of people, those who are stepping up from individual contributors to first time leading a team, what would you advise those people? How to set up yourself for success when you're doing it for the first time?
I think that's one of the most difficult transitions from being just relying on your own performance and your own capability to being in a position where unless I build a highly performing team, I cannot be successful. And what we often see, because people usually get promoted because they have technical competence.
Exactly.
They can do the work really well. So they get really frustrated with their direct reports and say, I just do it myself. It's faster and better. Resist that temptation.
I think I recognize
That's so
that.
true. Yeah, I completely see myself 12 years ago. The best micromanager ever.
So it starts with being able to accurately assess the current capability of your team, identifying strengths and development areas, and communicating it to them in a way that doesn't demotivate, doesn't upset, but challenges their thinking. So having those conversations like, where are we? And everybody has strengths and everybody has areas that need to be strengthened. Then finding opportunities to stretch them step by step. But, let me give you this new project. Or why don't you try to do this in a different way? So slowly building on the strengths and maybe developing some of the other areas. Delegate. Even if you have to spend a lot of time giving feedback and supporting, that's the only way to build capability. Provide very clear feedback. And what's very difficult for many first-time managers, keep people accountable. It's very natural for us to try to avoid difficult conversations. So in CCL, we look at it as people manager, first-time people manager, wears 4 hats. A player, I still play myself. I still do some work myself. A manager, I allocate resources, I delegate, I manage performance. A coach, I coach to develop capability. And a leader, I still need to motivate and inspire and translate the strategy for people to make it easy to understand. And we all need to learn to kind of take one hat off and put another. And the better we become in doing that, the better we identify, oh, now I need to be a manager. And now I need to be a leader who just gets people, excited and energetic. Now I need to coach. And there could be different proportions of time. You don't have to do all of it like in equal proportions, but the better we become, the more effective we become as a builder of team. And then if your team is performing well, of course, you will be seen as a highly successful, highly performing team leader.
True. So on this, I was thinking, in your opinion, leadership, is it nature or nurture? Are people born as good leaders or it's combination of both?
Well, people are born as babies. So, of course, the science tells us that there are certain personality traits that make somebody more, how to say it, have more potential to become a leader.
What would it be?
Well, if I look you look at any psychometric assessments that are being used to identify potential, I think learning agility.
Mm-hmm.
So that curiosity, which is a personality trait, ability to quickly learn from your experiences. People usually who are more, more self-driven, do not need a lot of supervision. So there are quite a few traits. But the reality is that I've met some wonderful leaders who were extroverts and introverts. I've met some leaders who were very humble and prefer to stay in the, behind the curtains, and they were very effective leaders. So I think, yes, there are certain personality traits that maybe will help, but it's intent and consistency in developing yourself that I think matters. Environment matters a lot. I've seen leaders behave very differently in one organization versus another.
Yeah, that's true. I think context is important.
It's so important. And sometimes a leader can be very effective in one organization and then they leave, they join another organization and they just fail spectacularly. Well, they still have the same knowledge, the same competency, but they cannot be effective leaders in that new environment. So I believe there is probably some balance between that. Again, in our health, our genetics maybe predicts 30 to 40% of our health. Everything else is lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle, exactly.
Right? So we can never hide behind personality. And, but I think leaders who are effective, they believe in the concept of servant leadership. When you are a leader of others, it's not about you, it's about them. I think that commitment to human centricity, that it's people that you are leading, they're not robots, they're not resources, and they can have bad days and something happening at home and they can struggle or they can lose motivation. If we believe in that and we commit to that and we see them as humans, then we can find the strengths in everybody and we can find opportunities to help them to really shine. So I think it's the will, it's the intent. Maybe some personality traits make it easier. But again, the world is also changing. As I said, that the era of a heroic leader, who's super capable, knows everything, very charismatic, I think that's always kind of becoming less and less effective. And people who listen and ask questions and give others space to share and create ideas. And I think those leaders with any personality, everybody can do that if they are committed.
Thank you so much. We've learned a lot. I have a few quick fire questions, which probably will help us also to get some inspiration.
Sure.
So
fire away.
What is the book you would recommend to everyone to read?
Anti-fragility. So the difference between resilience and anti-fragility is resilience is about ability to bounce back from adversity. Anti-fragility is you're not just bouncing, but you're becoming better. So I think the world that we live in, there's so much disruption and so much unpredictable stuff that is coming at us, that building that ability to be anti-fragile, especially for younger generation. I think they would probably benefit from reading that book.
Who are the leaders out there, like who are probably more public, who you are inspired with and would recommend to follow?
That is a very tough question.
It is, no?
I'm not easily inspired. I tell you, one person that I've recently started to really admire is a president or prime minister of Finland, Alexander Stubb, I think his last name is. So I've seen him in a lot of international forums. And what I really admire is that he is always so calm. He is just so, no matter what's happening, he's just so well composed, never loud, never all out there. So saying very simple, very humble things, but they just make so much sense. But also the way he analyzes things is a very comprehensive way. And then he communicates them in very simple, like a real life sentences that anybody can relate to. I don't remember where he was on some panel, some international forum, and it was happening after some big political event, and everybody was freaking out about it. And this gentleman, like, you need to calm down, go to sauna, take an ice bath, rest, and then think about it. So having ahead of the stage, just being so real. It's like, yes, it is stressful. You need to calm down, take care of yourself, and then analyze it. I just thought that just makes so much sense. Hard to think of anybody in the business world, to be honest with you. A lot of leaders have been very disappointing recently, especially in the high tech and AI world, and really feels like just competition and greed taking over. That was a tough question.
And the last question, actually in connection also to this Finnish president, you're engaging with a lot of customers, do public speaking. What is your secret to be present and maintain this energy right before you step into something important?
Don't think of yourself. Don't think of how people will react to me, or just focus on the audience. What is important to them? What will touch them? What will help them? So the moment you start thinking about yourself, you relax.
So true.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's a great final sentence here for the audience. We're thinking of you, and we hope that this episode was as fulfilling for yourselves as for us. I already, for myself, took few practical tips, which I'll use next week at work. Today's Friday, so from Monday.
Tell me how it goes.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, for your time and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's all for today's episode of HR and Beyond.
Please subscribe, follow, and recommend us to your friends and colleagues.
We would love to hear your thoughts or questions. Connect with us on LinkedIn or send us a message.
As we say in Kazakhstan,
Alga, which means onward. Take care, and until next time.